and kick things off. So I'll call to order the October 23rd meeting of the Montpelier Planning Commission. We first have to approve the agenda. So planning commissioners, I need a motion from one of you to approve the agenda for tonight. And this is the agenda. I'll verbalize a lot more things than normal for Carlton's benefit tonight. Mike always sends out the agenda over email prior to the meeting. And so that's the agenda that we follow for the meeting. And the rules, we have to follow certain rules of procedure to conduct the meeting. And one thing we have to do every time is to approve the agenda. And we're supposed to stick to that agenda because that way the public knows and has notice of what we're up to. That's why we do that. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, motion from Brian. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Second.
I don't know if I'm allowed to yet.
Oh yeah.
We'll give it to Carl this time. So he's there. He's on the books as doing an act on the planning commission now. So a motion from Brian and a second from Carlton to approve the agenda. Those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Procedural hurdle passed. The next thing on the agenda is comments from the chair. I do have some quick things to go over. One's an update about so Carlton, we recently reached out to the housing committee, which is, one of the other, there's many committees in Montpelier that are like ours in that they're, composed of residents who do work, and bring recommendations to the city council. And some of those committees bring recommendations to us because a lot of the planning stuff gets fed by, Mike had mentioned the energy committee earlier. There's the housing committee. There's some committees that give us things to forward on, to work on. Housing committee is one of them. It's a very important one. So we wanted to get to know those people better. So we reached out to them to ask if they wanted to do an informal get together just to get to know each other sometime soon. They're interested. So the update is that they're interested, and I'll be getting back soon about a possible day and venue for that. I also want to check with people because I'm not sure that I will be making the November 27 planning commission meeting, and it's a few days after Thanksgiving. If anybody has Thanksgiving plans that are going to bleed over into Monday, I just want to check to see, because if we have a few of those, then maybe we should cancel. But everyone who's here, do you know if you'll be available November 27th?
I'll be here, Kirby.
I'll be here.
Yeah, I think I'll be here. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it's
All right.
November
Well,
27th
I'll
we're
leave
talking
it.
about.
I'll leave it alone. But I will be getting back from Venice on that day, so I don't think that I'll be making the meeting. So
Are you serious?
Don't get too
Yeah,
jealous.
you got to get your priorities straight, Kirby.
Oh my gosh. Could
Yeah,
I
no, I'm
also
serious.
be coming back from Venice that day?
Yeah, I know.
I'll be coming back from Royalton, Vermont.
That's a nice place too, though.
Yeah, that's exotic, right?
Yeah, you can hang out on some water, just like Venice. You can have a worthy burger.
Just visualize a gondola with heat and on a paddleboard. You can do it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to leave that November meeting alone then. Just heads up. I mean, I might be able to make it, but and then the last thing is wanted to get feedback and maybe an update from Mike about setting the hearing for. So Carlton, recently we have been working on some adjustments to the zoning regulations. There's been a lot of discussion about that recently, and we had an informal discussion with the public at one point. But according to state law, we have to to make changes like these. We have to set a hearing where the public can come and give us feedback formally. The whole process is, we discuss it, we come up with some ideas, we put those out there for the public to see. People have to be given 2 weeks notice, I believe it's 2 weeks, of our hearing, and then they come and give us their feedback. And we don't have to do anything with that feedback, but we have to at least give them the opportunity. And then from there, we'll vote on whatever zoning changes that we'll do, and we'll send those on to the city council. And so we don't have any power to make laws ourselves or to make regulations ourselves, but we make our recommendations to the city council. And most of the time, most of the items are not very contentious and they do get passed, but occasionally city council will reject or change something that we send along, like one item. But for these zoning changes, there's a lot of technical housekeeping type changes that's mostly been in Mike's territory, but I don't remember, but we've probably got like 30 altogether, something like that. So anyways, that's coming up. So Mike, what day do you think is going to make sense for that?
I had a meeting with Brian from CVRPC, our Regional Planning Commission, because they're the ones who are putting together the draft zoning map. And so he has gotten buried in a bunch of other projects. And so we had a conversation about our timing. So we also have a 30-day notice that I have to send to the state before the Planning Commission public hearing. So, but that can be done by email. So that's not as much of a problem. Putting things in the newspaper, which is a requirement for the hearing, there's a 15-day, but we always have to leave a week because you have to send it to the newspaper and it has to get published 15 days in advance. So,
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Because of the internet, that doesn't truncate in any way?
Nope, not yet. We have pushed for that. They have made things a little bit more flexible in a couple of places, including being able to have Zoom meetings. And so that's one of the pluses, but they have not adjusted any of those. They made a few minor adjustments. I used to have to send them to the state via certified mail in hard copy. And so they finally, 3 or 4 years ago, finally let us just go and email it to them because they're all digital copies anyway. So we're all just trying to figure out why do you need a hard copy when we can just email it to you? And they preferred the email anyways because they have a big digital library. So finally, a few years ago, they did make that change that I can just email it to them. So that's relatively quick. So if we are going to have this on the public hearing for the December 11th meeting, that's our second Monday in December, then I would have to have it sent by November 11th, which is Saturday, so November 10th, to there are 5 groups that I have to send them to. Doesn't matter what they all are. That's abutting communities, regional planning commission, state, somebody else. So we'll send all those out by November 10th. So we're on the 23rd now. He said he needed about 2 weeks to finish up the zoning map. So that puts it November 6th, which is the Monday before that week. So that's pretty much what we've decided on. Is the fastest we can get this in is December 11th, and we'll shoot for that date. I'll probably ask, we may have to be a little bit longer on that day perhaps, because it would be good for us, especially if we're only having one meeting in December, which I know we're only having one meeting in December because the next meeting would be Christmas, and so we're clearly not meeting on Christmas. So if we're only having one meeting, we really want to get the zoning draft to city council for January. And the reason for that is we want to get it adopted by city council before town meeting day, which is the first Tuesday in March. So we don't want to have public hearings before town meeting day and then have them try to adopt it after town meeting day because we might have new councilors and then we've got to redo it all. So we usually try to set as a you know, if it takes longer, it takes longer. But if we set a goal of saying we want them to have it adopted in February before town meeting day, that's why. So I would really like, if we have a public hearing December 10th, and we know we're not going to have another meeting in December, that we stay a little bit later if we need to approve whatever changes we're going to make and then forward it to city council. And that sometimes if we get 20 or 30 people who want to provide comment, it can take a while to have a public hearing. And I know Kirby has done a very good job of really running meetings. So we run 5:30, 7:30, and that's it. We don't go later, but this may be one time I ask that we might need a little bit of an exception, a little bit of flexibility, so we can try to get that approved so we all can enjoy Christmas having this put behind us. So that's my timing for the hearing.
I agree with that, Mike, actually, because I think we should vote. We shouldn't wait a month to vote after the hearing, because I think people will not retain as much. So voting either of the night of or just waiting and doing the hearing in January seem like the most practical ways. And from what you're saying about town meeting day, I do think that the ideal is to just get it done early December. So let's plan for that, and let's hope that we can get through the comments before 7:30 so that we can have some time to vote and discuss. But yeah, I think people should be prepared to do that. Okay, those are the things I had to bring up, just the little housekeeping things. So I don't have anything else. Did anybody else have any announcements or anything before we move on the agenda?
I just have a question for Mike. A week ago, someone mentioned to me in flood recovery about the whole, like, why don't we just build the whole city up? And I was like, well, actually, the planning department is seeking to elevate certain buildings in Montpelier, and they're looking for state funding to do so. And I was just wondering, Mike, if that had gone anywhere since the last time you mentioned it.
Yeah, we don't have any money yet. You know, it's always been and continues to be my recommendation. I know there's a lot of people who have different views, but I think the biggest thing is to, if a building can be elevated, literally lift up, fill in the basement, and you leave the building 2 to 3 feet above the base flood elevation. That's the best solution to the problem, because it really addresses any way that the flooding happens. So, because sometimes people are like, well, we should make more wetlands in the up. I have nothing against making more wetlands, but that doesn't stop an ice jam from flooding downtown Montpelier. But if everybody's buildings are elevated, no matter why, you know, if there's for some reason some flood happens for any reason, the buildings are elevated. You know, it doesn't guarantee nobody will get flooded, because certainly you can have a 1,000-year flood event that exceeds it. But that's why we want to be a couple of feet above, and that's been my suggestion. But we've asked the state to redirect existing money, so everything operates in a fiscal year. We're talking about the fiscal year 24 state money. We asked them to reallocate some of that money to let us use that money to apply it to help, in our case, residential properties elevate their homes. That didn't get enough support, so they have said they're going to take it up in the legislature in January to allocate new money towards that idea. So we just have to wait to see if it actually gets approved or not. But it sounds like a lot of people, because it's not just Montpelier. We happen to be the ones who are really pushing the idea, but they want to put together a set of funds that people in Barry, Hardwick, Woodbury, Calais, you know, a lot of communities have been hurt, and a lot of people could benefit by having access to funds to elevate their homes. So we don't have it yet, but it would help.
And do you think it's like budget adjustment act that would be in there? Or you think
Well, we tried to do a budget adjustment, and some people have said they weren't willing to do it with the and this is stuff that I'm not usually dealing with, so I don't probably have all the words right. There's some budget committees that have the right to reallocate existing funds, and they said no. But I guess that you can pass the budget reallocation bill, which the entire legislature could vote on. So just because 5 people said no doesn't mean that if 150 people had a chance to vote on it, they wouldn't vote yes. So there is another kind of opportunity to get in there and get some of this year's funding reallocated. And we'll see who can push and get some things to change. There were a lot of impacted communities, not just in central Vermont, but Ludlow and a number of southern Vermont towns also got hurt. So there are a lot of places that could benefit. And so the more communities that could benefit by having some money available to help homeowners elevate homes, the more likely we are to get the bill to pass.
So are the Montpelier-based legislators pushing for this? Are they heavily involved, or is it mostly just the city?
Our legislators are involved. In fact, Ann Cummings is one of the key people who's on one of the Senate appropriation, maybe
Senate Finance.
Senate Finance.
She's the chair of Senate Finance.
So we have a few people who are in key positions that help us. And the city has hired, and over the past couple of years has hired a lobbyist to help advance bills that are critical to, not only to the city, but to most larger municipalities. So,
Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
I'm going to just take newbie, just a kind of role here, but is there any like talk anywhere where there could be developed like maybe a mega bucks lottery ticket that was specifically geared towards like, the impacted places so that we could kind of push those for people who, could possibly fund something extra without impacting, or quicker ways of money?
yeah, I think they've been doing some fundraising. I think the state sale of the We Are Vermont Strong is going into a fund to help flood victims. I think that's one of them. So they do have some ideas at the state. I know there's a lot of fundraising. Montpelier Alive is doing Montpelier specific fundraising, but most of that has been targeted to the businesses who were probably the heaviest, most damaged. But yeah, I think we're open to, city and state are open to any ideas for being able to raise money to make a difference. We're looking for about $2 million for Montpelier. That would only elevate some of the residential properties. That doesn't get to the downtown commercial buildings, but it does help a number of single family homeowners who are currently homeless because their houses were, they had 2 to 3 feet of water into their first floors. And so they really need a lot of help to get back on their feet. They've got insurance money to fix their house, but the insurance money does not elevate their house. So they're all like, why would we put everything back to wait to get flooded again? We're willing to fix up our houses, but we need help elevating the house. So we need, some money to help elevate the house, and then we'll fix the house. So that's where we're trying to help out on those. And then we'll look for different money to help. There's a source of federal money. It's called BRIC. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but that's basically does scoping studies to look at various properties. And we're going to look to get some grant money to help get some studies of the downtown buildings, because these big brick buildings, we're not talking about like pick up and elevate where Aubuchon's is. That's just not a project that's going to happen, but you can flood proof those buildings with floodgates. But we've got to go through and have a professional go through and look at those buildings and provide a recommendation that says, you need this type of floodgate here, you need this type of backflow preventer, you need this type of X, Y, and Z flood proofing in order to keep this building safe in the event of a flood. And so then once we've got a plan for each building in the downtown, then we can go through and get money that says, okay, this is going to cost $300,000 to make this flood proof, this building. similar to M&T Bank. If you ever go down the old Chittenden Bank, if you ever look at that, you see these stainless steel slots. Well, that's where you go out, you drop a panel in, latch them in, and it flood proofs the building.
Like the
And they
post
found,
office.
yep, yeah, the post office. Unfortunately, they built theirs post 9/11, and it was really designed to be. I think it was designed to be a blast barrier and keep people from being able to drive trucks into it.
Yeah.
They actually didn't make it high enough. It wasn't to the height of the flood.
Yeah.
They never asked us for what we would do, because we would have told them to do it higher, because they weren't as high as base flood elevation, which is why the post office flooded. But it was a flood barrier, but it wasn't to the correct height, and that was what went wrong with that one.
So
But
during the second meeting for the Resilient from Montpelier, we had breakout sessions and some people from Waterbury there. Are there any talks about, like, say, Randall Street, how they did it, or any types of the individuals who for the 2011 with Irene, or so that there's not reinventing the wheel, that it could possibly already be there, or are those things too obsolete at this point?
well, our planning staff has met very shortly after the flood with Steve Lott's speech, he just retired this year, the planner for Waterbury, and Barb Farr, who was the resilience officer for Waterbury post flood. So she helped them go through their reconstruction. And we got a lot of advice and recommendations from them on, where to get money, where not to get money, what are the projects that work well, what are the ones that didn't work well. And that's why we're working to get state money and not federal money to try to elevate houses, because they spent 3 years trying to get federal money to elevate their buildings, only to find out that they really couldn't. And so that was great advice for us, because we know you can't use federal money to elevate houses, at least not historic ones. Because the historic requirements are so high that you have to meet a cost benefit analysis, and the historic requirements make it such that you can't meet the cost benefit, and then you demolish the building. So FEMA is really good at doing buyouts, not very good at elevating buildings. So if you want to do a buyout, we'll steer people towards FEMA, and if they want to elevate their house, then we got to steer them towards some other funds that don't exist. And that's why we want to go to the state and say, make these exist, because we're in a housing crisis, and we can't go around demolishing 35 units of housing when we could save them by spending a little bit of money to save them. So
Okay, guys, I got to jump in and move us along the agenda. We have the consultants are waiting to talk to us. The next thing, though, is to introduce Carlton. So, Carlton, if there's anything you'd like to say about yourself, now's the time. You have the floor for that.
I'm very happy to be here. I've lived in Washington County for 20 years, worked in various industries. Am in Montpelier specifically because it's my retirement town. I'll be 50 next year, and I'd done 700,000 miles trucking. I got into trucking after software to get rid of coworkers, and now I'm back to indulge in community and make a difference. Thank you. That's it.
All right, that's great.
maybe we'll go through some of our introductions later on if we've got some time.
Yeah. You get to know all of us. Got to watch out for Brian. He's really mean, but otherwise everybody's all right.
Dude, wow, I'm like sitting right here. I was the first one to say hi to Carlton. I was the first one to say hi and introduce myself. Come on.
I mostly chose you because you're probably the nicest person. maybe in all of Montpelier. So
right. Okay, keep it going.
And with that, let's segue into voting for the next chair and vice chair. Consider that attacking Brian as my campaigning. So anyway, so we had two reappointments. Aaron and Ariane, even though they're not here right now, are still with us on the planning commission. And Carlton took a vacant seat, which was left by John Adams. So with that changeover, we'll do new elections for chair and vice chair.
Who's currently Kirby and Gabe for Carlton's benefit. Gabe is
right.
Gabe Lajeunesse is our vice chair.
And Gabe is with us now. He's arrived. So I don't know. I'm just gonna open the floor for anybody to have questions or to make nominations.
I think we're in really good hands with the current administration. I was going to move Kirby to remain as chair if you're willing to keep it.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine with me.
And I think that I don't know if I can double nominate, but I mean, I also, and I'm willing to, but also with Gabe's work and experience in the industry is very valuable, and you know, he's a handsome man and he gets his work done. So I think he should be the vice chair as well.
All right, Brian. I owe you some money there. Nice one.
Well, you guys are doing a good job. We're in good hands. So I don't know if you guys are amenable to staying on as chair and vice chair.
Yeah, I am. I've been, this is for maybe for Carlton's benefit. I mean, I've been on the planning commission a long time now. 7, 8 years, something in that neighborhood. So I probably will move along sometime soon because I want, you know, I think fresh blood in these things is important. But we are in the middle of some zoning changes and the city plan. And so sticking through that. But I just so everyone knows, and I think I've probably mentioned this before, but I'll be transitioning at some time in the near future. But I'm good with staying on for now. And Gabe, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I think, you know, so Kirby and I kind of checked in with Kirby because I will tell you that I do not want to be the chair whenever Kirby decides that he's done. I have a lot of things going on. And so if there is anybody else that's interested, because what the vice chair, as far as I can tell, does, you know, I sort of see the agendas in advance. And then if Kirby were unavailable, you know, then I would make sure the meeting was run. But if there's somebody else that's interested in, you know, in that role, I'm okay with stepping aside too, because whenever Kirby does decide that, you know, he's been here. Kirby, how long have you been the chair?
I've been the chair for 3 or 4 years, I think.
I mean, he's had a good tenure. He's going to stick through a bunch of these changes. But if there's anybody else interested, I'm also okay with stepping aside so that there could be a little bit of overlap. So I just would throw that out there.
It's good to think about. It's good for people to think about. We'll have a leadership void sometime in the future, and the shoes will probably be too much to fill, but someone's got to try, you know. So anyway, okay. So it sounds like we have a nomination from Brian for Gabe and myself. We've accepted that. So status quo is the motion. Mike, do we need a second for?
Usually you need a second for a nomination. Yeah.
Okay. And we may as well play safe anyway. So does Brian have a second to his motion to nominate Gabe and I? Second from Maria. Mike, do you want to do the actually the facilitating of it, since it's a little,
it doesn't matter.
Weird for me to.
Oh. No, it's fine for you to do it, but you know,
okay.
It really just comes down to if everyone's in favor of the motion, say aye.
So before we do that, though, I'll say, is there anyone that want to have any discussion about the motion about? So the motion is to nominate Kirby for vice chair and Kirby for chair and Gabe for vice chair. Let the record show Kirby for chair, Gabe for vice chair. And that's how Gabe accidentally became the chair. So we have, there's, procedurally discussion time. So I don't want to breeze through it without giving anybody a chance. Does anybody have anything to discuss with that?
I'm good.
Okay.
You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Okay, so those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so 5-0 votes for the continued leadership. Okay, and with that, I have a number of decrees. Just kidding. Okay. We've gotten to like the main event for the evening, and that is SE Group is who we have not heard from for a while, have been working hard on putting some storyboard pages together. So Carlton, we've worked for a very long time putting together a new city plan that we've looked at the chapters individually. We've worked through most of the chapters that go into the city plan. I'm guessing Mike may have told you a little bit about what the city plan's about. We plan to talk offline tomorrow, which would probably be the best time to go into the true weeds of it all. But just to say that we've done most of the chapters. There's still a little more work we need to do, but we've passed off the work that we have finished and voted on to our consultant SE Group, who are putting the plan into a website format for us. That's the main thing that they're doing. And so they've checked in with us. And there's Aiden, who's a representative of SE, who's going to walk us through the latest work that they've done. So again, they've taken what we've given them and what we voted on already, and they're putting it into website form. Matt, take it away, Aiden.
Thanks, Kirby, and hi, Carlton. Great to meet you, and welcome to the Planning Commission. Mike, can you give me the capability to? I do need the capability to share screen.
Yep.
It says disabled.
Huh. All right.
But anyway, while you're figuring that out, Carlton, for your benefit, and then I'll kind of get into more general update. But I think Kirby and Mike have given it a pretty good introduction, where we are trying to make a city plan that isn't the sort of like typical, maybe drier PDF that's 60 pages long and that nobody really ever reads, except for when you have some sort of permitting or zoning issue that you really need to get into the details on. So we're trying to make a city plan that is through an interactive website called Story Maps, where each chapter will have its own little page associated with it. So people will be able to, for example, for the economic development or historic resources chapter, you'll be able to go through some of the previous context, understand why that specific resource is important, look at some interactive maps that show you maybe where the location of historic resources are, and then it'll launch into what the aspirations, goals, and strategies are for that specific resource. We have started this a while ago at this point, but obviously with some of the existing conditions in Montpelier and just other process items, it's been a bit delayed. Mike and I were chatting the other day, and we do have sort of an end of next year deadline for sure to make sure that this gets through Planning Commission review, public review, and council review, knowing that each of those will have their own sort of time associated with. So I think by the end of this year, it would be wonderful to get a first draft of all the chapters into Story Maps, to then go into future public review. We have, let's see, community resources, land use, and maybe one other that have yet to be finalized for our process. Mike and Kirby and everyone else, is that there might be one other that isn't quite there yet.
Yeah, I had economic development and energy that are mostly done. I think we just needed to get the finals to you. So that was the one in my note today that I had to go and follow up on.
Okie doke. So let's see, this little window always. There we go. Okay, so the plan website Google folder is where you'll find all of the chapters as well as the working drafts and final drafts. There are implementation strategies that, well, that's skipping ahead, I'll get there. But touching base on that John Adams thing, Mike, I'll bring up our strategy there. So, okay, this is the existing story map chapters as they stand. These are all the ones that are created. I think they're, yeah, as we said, 2 or 3 more will be added to this. It would be great if there was 12 just for numbers, but there might be 11. So, is what it is. Historic resources is one of the first ones that we got finalized in a more polished way. Some of these other ones have either just small bits and pieces that are waiting to be done, like some mapping data that we still need to get or still needs to be put into the system. I'll just launch into historic resources really quick. So they all start with this structure: introduction, planning context. Synergies is how it relates to other planned chapters, implementation summary, and then who are the parts and players involved with moving these strategies forward. Introduction with some photos, launch into planning context, where these interactive maps will come up showing these specific layers, which relates to the text that you see here. So as people scroll through, different information will come up. So that's the planning context here. And then for each of the maps, we'll have an area where a member of the public will, if they are interested, they can zoom around by themselves through these buttons here. So each of the chapters will have this graphic here that shows the relationships with other chapters. Eventually, we can add links in here. There's also a little fun fact for each chapter. Then we get into the implementation summary, where it's right now just aspirations and goals, and the strategies, because there are so many of them, they will go into a separate document that we'll talk about in a second. That is the general template for each of the pages. There's some slight differences in photos and maps for each, but they all should look fairly similar. For those who are interested in the full strategies for each of these chapters, John Adams had a vision to put together this interactive matrix item where you could go maybe by chapter or by goal. And I don't exactly know what his vision was here, but just have an easy way to search and find exactly what you want rather than just a list of, hundreds of strategies. So we do have someone who can speak with John and try to get his vision created. And if that's just a fancy interactive Excel or something like that, anyway, we can kind of figure out the back end of what we need to create that. But that is something that we will need to still develop, as well as there are statutory requirements for having a more static version of that document. So at the very least, we can at least link to a PDF before we get that created, if it is taking a bit.
I think it would be good to try to get that done. It seemed like people were really excited by the idea of it. And we, I think you probably heard, Aiden, that John just stepped down from Planning Commission, but we still have access to him. We know where he lives. We can get him. And yeah, because I had my idea of what he was talking about when he was talk about that, but probably not exactly what he meant.
Right. Right. Yeah. So we'll set up a meeting.
Yeah. Some of the stuff he was talking about, I do know, like we do have some strategies, right, Mike, that are the same strategy but in different chapters. And
Yeah.
So I know what he was talking about was like linking those things to show something that would display how, if you're interested in bicycle lanes, and that might not be one that's in multiple chapters, but it might be just transportation.
The designated downtown program, that would be one that, having a designated downtown gives you access to historic resources grants. So it's in the historic resources, as we should continue to have our designated downtown, because it provides funding opportunities for historic preservation, but it's also an economic development tool as well. So it appears in the economic development chapter. And so, yeah, there's ideas like that appear in a number of chapters. He also, because it was going to be coming out of an Excel table, we would have the ability to label a number of things. Like we've talked about, things like programs. Every goal or every strategy was going to be either continue, amend, or it's new. So if we just wanted to go through and say, what are the new things that we're recommending doing? Because sometimes that's important. There's a lot of things that we do that, we just want to note that there are things that are being done. And there's a reason we have a designated downtown. And if people want to know why, it's because it helps us implement these different goals. But there's nothing new that we're doing. We're just going to continue doing what we've already done. And then in other cases, if you want to have somebody asks, well, what new things are you going to do? Well, then you could query this table to go through and say, okay, what are all the new things we're doing with historic resources or that we're recommending? And you could go and take a look at that list. So I think that was what he had, is because it was coming out of an Excel table, we'd be able to have all these different cells where we could query different things, which is really for the policy wonks. And Montpelier has its share of policy wonks. If you really want to drill into that and really ask a lot of questions, you can do that. But if you just want to kind of get an overview of all of the things, then we'd have these static PDFs that you could pull up and go through and be able to see where they all plug in.
So do we have any format so far for the goals and strategies?
No, we were setting up I was setting up to meet with our new communications coordinator came on first. She'd been working part-time up until July 1st, and then she became full-time. And so we had been talking throughout the spring about the fact that we were going to be working together when she got full-time, so we could start to go and develop these tables, because we had to kind of figure out how we're going to give a lot of information without confusing people and without all the, how do we make this? And so she was excited. This was going to be a great project. July 1st, we're going to get rocking and rolling. July 10th, we get flooded. So we haven't sat back down to go through and decide, but now we're starting to reach a kind of a pressure point where it's like, if we're going to go to the public and start having public input, if we can wrap everything up by December and we can start rolling out some public hearings on the city plan starting in January, February, March, then we're going to need to have this done. So I'm going to have to start meeting with her again And this is a good reminder because I hadn't sat down with her on this topic, and I should.
Mike, is that mostly for the static version?
That was for the static version. She was going to help with the formatting of the static.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, let me know if you want support. We can try to create like a template or something like that. But sounds like you're going to handle that with her.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have ideas, I'm more than willing to go. And again, I know we're working from our different budgets that we have and making budget recommendations going forward. We can certainly work those into the budgets as well if you wanted to take the first stab at it, and we could work with her because I know she's busy as well. I've got to check with her on her timing because there's a lot of communications work going on right now.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm happy to at least sit in on that first call with her, and then we can maybe make a game plan after that. Or I guess if you're meeting in person, that makes it a little more difficult.
Yeah, maybe we'll set up a Zoom meeting with the three of us or whoever else on your end wants to sit in, and we can kick around ideas of how to make this. What's the easiest way to get this all put together?
Okay, I think the last thing to just kind of introduce for Carlton's benefit and to give an update to everyone else is this homepage, which I don't think it has changed almost at all for many months, knowing that we wanted to kind of wait until some things were drafted and come up with some of those narratives that we really wanted to show up on this page. So we still have this as the idea for the hub site here. People will have links to the chapters here potentially, or we will just have them go to this plan chapters tab, which currently just has 3 of them linked, but we can update that really easily. So that's a decision that this group can help with. The eventual interactive matrix that we come up with will be linked here, and then additional resources that are mentioned in each of the chapters. So previous energy plans or renewable energy dashboards or something like that will be linked here as well. Sorted by chapter. So this is still something that will need to be built out a bit, but I think it makes sense once things are developed to kind of revisit this.
I think the additional resources would have a couple other pieces on the process we used, and we have a tab about this plan, but we really would have another one in there that would kind of get into some of the background of, if people were interested in some of those background facts of the statutes and the required pieces and why have a plan. But I would put together just a bunch of little pieces that would kind of go into there.
Yeah, Kirby?
You had mentioned a minute ago getting some input from us on, I think it was the plan chapters tab.
Yeah.
Is that and just if you wanted to elaborate more for the planning commissioners to think about what input did you have in mind, Aiden?
Yeah. So this first page here, we had sort of an initial vision of having the plan chapters available right on the home screen so that there wasn't a lot of confusion. You just sort of immediately saw them. Because I haven't been in this program for a while, I don't know if there is a way to merge those sort of like embedded photos that we were seeing on the plan chapters page into this page, but I think there is. So we can choose between if we want this more icon focused look on the home page, or if we want this second page that has just whatever photo is being used on the cover of each story map right now. So I think it's both icons as a choice, and then location as a choice.
Okay. So, okay, whether to use like the photos or the icons, and then you're asking whether it should be on the main page or have its own tab, or, and I'll say right off the bat, I think I like having it at both so that people can stumble on it their way. You know what I mean? But what do other people think about the options here?
So the icons currently appear in the about the plan section. Okay, that's just like the home page.
Yep.
So you scroll down, and then you see a bunch of icons. Okay. And then the plan chapters is where the photos are.
Yep.
I'd like the photos better than the icons. The icons seem a little impersonal and like
Governmental.
well, I mean, you know, we're a small town, so you kind of look at the photos and you recognize all the locations, and it's just the icons seem a bit more generic. And what was that?
I said utilitarian. It seems.
Yeah, like we just got them off of some, you know, like MS Word. Not that we did.
I mean,
so sorry for saying that, but you know what I mean. Like they just seem a bit, I don't know, removed.
Yeah, they're more sterile.
I agree.
Absolutely. But I like the pictures as well.
I think it brings out the humanness, like they were saying, and I think we do kind of probably want the entire website to be like that, to bring planning to a human level. I think that's been everybody's vision, right, Mike? Anybody else have any more comments about that? Maria and Carlton, what did you guys think about the locations of the buttons?
Does that mean, okay, so are we still saying that we're going to have both ways to capture the audience's attention in the interface? So are there just going to be, are we doubling the pictures? Or are we having different pictures as far if we're going to capture it in two different places?
So the way that this works is that these are little like cards, little like coded cards. So we wouldn't necessarily be able to link to the same chapter with a different photo. So I think, at least to what Kirby's comment is right now, having the about the plan page, which is the first thing that people would click on, have the photo options here, and also having them in the plan chapters tab here.
Okay.
I was assuming, by the way, that there would be more content above the links on the about the plan page, but if we don't think we're going to have any more content, then maybe my suggestion is silly. Maybe because it would just look like it's the same page in both places, unless it's. But I was just thinking that it, like, having the option to link there from like the bottom of the about the plan page could be good if there's more content on the about the plan page. But if it's basically just two pages that are the same buttons, then that would make us look a little bush league, maybe, and that maybe not great. So that would be.
And could there be just like, say, underneath the photo, like a small blurb, so you have as much informative information as possible, so that when they click on it, they know that they're specifically going to it, rather than having to click on it and that be a waste of time for them?
We could try to build. It sounds like if it's going to be on the homepage, have it be more simple, kind of get to the point. And then if we wanted to have a little bit more information, I would probably lean to putting that in the plan chapters page. This is the little blurb that just comes in from the story map. But if we would have to redo the layout a little bit here. But if people did want a little bit more of an introduction for economic development before they clicked on it, we could certainly add that. This whole ball of worms is partially why we had put this on the back burner for a while, and tried to get to these planned chapters. But we do really want to make sure that we put the energy and investment into this page. Like, we want to make sure that it works as best as possible. Right now, we're seeing this as a link from the official Montpelier website. But if someone from the IT department or website development department wants to incorporate it a little bit more into the existing website, we could also just say, okay, we're going to build it in the official one and not have this external site. So things to consider as we go forward. But I think making sure that we have enough description of, how we got here, what the vision is, some of the key terms that we're using, aspirations, goals, strategies, will be helpful for this site.
And I'm just curious, this is inside baseball possibly, but is there a dual vision for mobile as well as desktop? Because some people use their cell phones, some people use their computers, and it doesn't always look the same. It doesn't always translate.
Yep, there is. I think there is a way to preview this site, at least on my side, on an iPad or an iPhone. So this site in particular and Story Maps does have, they have their own functionality to make sure that it fits on different screen size.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of with you, Kirby, in terms of if they're going to be the same, if they're both going to be photos, right? If that's instead of the icon stuff, then it does seem like redundant to have basically the same thing on each page. And kind of like remove to improve, kind of keep it simple. I like the little snippet it just has there. It's an overview and it's pretty straightforward, pretty approachable. If those pictures move to the About the Plan page, and then does that mean conceivably that the Plan Chapters tab goes away? And you would just access the Plan Chapters through the About the Plan page?
Well, I think the original plan that we had for laying this out was to have the About the Plan, the introduction page. And it was really to set the stage for two major sections, the plan chapters and the plan implementation. So, I think if I were making a suggestion, and this kind of goes back to the original layout, which you guys kind of moved away from, but the initial About the Plan wouldn't have those tiles on it. It was really to kind of start to explain to people, what are these storyboards? And if you go to the plan, the plan chapters link, this is what you're going to find in the storyboards. And it's going to have an explanation of what the storyboards are and what's going on in them. And if you're interested in how we're going to accomplish our goals, what are our goals and how we're going to accomplish them, then that's what you would find on the implementation tab. And then we would have an explanation of what's an aspiration, what's a goal, and what's a strategy. And I think that was a little bit of how we had originally laid out the About the Plan, and it kind of got condensed down to what we have here. And then we decided at a certain point, we're like, let's, I think it was actually Aaron who had the idea of, let's not try to write the executive summary until we've written the plan. So let's go through and do our plan chapters. And when we're done with our plan chapters, we can come back to this opening page. And maybe that would give us a little more insight of, okay, now that we've seen the chapters, now let's do this, let's do this About the Plan page last, I think was Aaron's idea, because we really need to see the plan chapters all done, the implementation page all done. And then we can come back to say, all right, now how do we tell the public? How do we teach the public? How do we educate them on, because we want them to come to this page first. We want them to get acquainted with what this plan is, why it's structured the way it is, how it works, and then tell people explore. There's a lot of exploring you can do in here to learn. And this is how it works, and this is how you would navigate from storyboard to storyboard or implementation strategy to implementation strategy. So maybe we follow Aaron's advice and leave this one till last again, but I think that's where and how we ended up here.
Like, I think that makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah, that
remember
makes
saying that too. But I think having on the About the Plan page, like you're saying, explain to people that how they can use the website. Look at the plan chapter section to look at individual chapter, like inviting them to kind of jump in and poke around. So I think after this green blurb, it just goes, so explore the city plan. So maybe having like a text right here, like in, I don't know, kind of like giving people instructions on how to explore it and what kinds of things they might be able to find as they poke around. But yeah, I think that is something that comes after we've finalized or looked at all of the different chapters and have an overarching message, maybe.
I think that all sounds fine. We had, by the way, drafted some intro language, and I just pulled it up because it some intro language and some end language. I think it was intended for this landing page, and also a brief description of what aspirations, goals, and strategies are, which sounds like that was probably meant for the implementation page. But so that stuff's on the Google Drive. So yeah, I guess that's where we were going. It's been a while, so we have to kind of refresh ourselves about what we're thinking. But what I'm hearing from people is, for now, maybe not having buttons on the landing page, but we'll revisit it later once we know more about what kind of content we're going to have there. Another thing just to throw out there could be, I just in general kind of like the idea of something being user-friendly in a way in which you can get to the important parts, like from different routes. Maybe not having big buttons though, like dominating the page, but maybe just having, if possible, like a small font thing to click on at the bottom of like each chapter's name or something. Maybe, but until we get this page, like, I think fleshed out, it's hard to know what's the best thing to do with that.
Yeah, when we had just talked about getting rid of these icons, but maybe still having some links, I kind of envisioned like 11 small buttons in like a row, that it was less visually obtrusive maybe, but still let people kind of jump right there if they already know what they're wanting to look for. But no, I think it makes sense to consolidate this, get rid of the icons. I think as far as process goes, Mike, I think the plan on your side is still to do some chapter review and content writing over the next few weeks and months. And then maybe in early 2024, we set a session on this. And we can it's not hard to set up these pages. So we can maybe try to come to you with a couple examples and see what resonates and what works from a user flow perspective. Because this is certainly not a final product. We could get rid of the photo, we could change the colors, like we can do a lot here to make it a little bit more grabby. But Carlton, you're on mute.
I was just going to say redundancy is always a great thing, just visual redundancy. and passive, as passive as possible. So, but as long, it's almost like a safety net. People want to go to exactly where they want to go, but they can meander other places, but they don't want to get lost in the sauce, and they can go back to where they specifically, wanted to go in the first place. So like each page, like you said, have like those key, buttons. That's a great idea.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Aiden, let us know if you have ideas for like any like content drafting or anything. Like if you feel like some of these pages need a description, like we've talked about that a little bit tonight. I think about like Mike had mentioned what he kind of thought of like what the content of the implementation page would look like. If you need our help with any drafting, I'd be happy to volunteer to work on that and pass it around to the other planning commissioners if you need anything like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just let us know.
Cool. So I think next steps on our side are just to have a meeting with John to go through the implementation matrix, continue to fill any data gaps or photo gaps or things like that we might need to finish out these pages, and then continue to work with Mike on those final chapters, getting them into story maps. So it sounds like we might have it before the end of the year. I think land use might still not be written, but other things are really close. We're also probably going to do some sort of a contract extension as well. So the time and budget for more review and iterations of this will allow us to keep working on this for a couple more months.
Yeah, I think the original plan was to have it in city council in the spring or something, or maybe even earlier. But the flood, ruined all of our timelines.
I know.
That sounds great. Anything else you want to show us?
That is it. The link to those 9 pages, I'll make sure that Mike has this collections link so that you can explore at least the text content, and all of these should be updated with the exception of energy. I think it's the old draft. So we'll just be adding content to that over the next few weeks here. But
does anybody recognize where that arts and culture photo is from? This on the painting on the ground? Says
It looks like where Rome is. Or
Langdon Street?
it looks like Langdon Street.
Yeah.
I think they closed that. They did like a music festival there a couple years ago. I think that's Langdon Street.
Yeah, it does look like Langdon Street. But that art's not there anymore. But I mean, I don't know. That's fine. We can preserve it.
It's a great catch on, like, especially for some of these really, like, arts and culture should have amazing, relevant, up-to-date photography. Like, there's so much great work in Montpelier. We have some of it here, but it's not all of it. So if you do have, I can crowdsource that for the planning commission.
They rotate this like on Lana Street in particular. They kind of rotate the art installations and stuff there, which I think it would be cool for the website to have some of the old stuff too. It's actually, I don't know, makes us seem more vibrant that the art's kind of rotating and stuff.
And there's new murals too. There's a muralist that has done some things recently. I'm not sure. I know where she works, but I don't want to say it. But she's discussed it, and so that would be a good capture and maybe synergistic opportunity. Bring more life in his eyes.
Absolutely, yeah. Feel free to send photos to Mike, and he'll make sure those get along to our team. But especially this chapter, all the chapters should have great photography, but this one would be really awesome. to have as much as possible. Okie dokie. Well, thank you all. We will be in touch, and I'm sure I'll see you before. Well, I'm not sure I'll see you all before the end of the year, but we will see each other again. Thank you for your effort, and welcome again to Carleton.
Thank you so much, Aiden. We appreciate you and your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for your coordination. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
So it looks like that's coming along. If anyone has photos, we talked about that before. I don't think I ever acted on it. I didn't dig through my photos to find full Montpelier ones, but we could give those to Mike to pass along. They could end up on the plan. I think they also have access to loads of photos from Montpelier Alive, right? So,
yeah,
you know, I don't think they need our photos. But if you want to sneak your family on there or something, like, here's your chance. Okay. The next thing on the agenda is for us to discuss the municipal planning. I don't even know if we're going to discuss it, but Mike's going to tell us about the municipal planning grant for 2024.
So our recommendation, so every year in the fall, the state puts out an application process for, it's called municipal planning grants. They used to be for about 10 to 15,000, and they bumped them up to about $30,000 now. They've started to put more money into it finally. And so these grants allow usually for planning commissions to do city plan updates, zoning updates. We do most of our zoning stuff in-house now because we're done with the big update. But we can do specific plans. In this case, for this year, I think I'm going to recommend that we try to get additional dollars to keep and finish up the city plan. They are wrapping up at the end of October. Their current grant wraps up. So they're not going to have any money until January. But they're going to keep working on stuff because they've got some stuff that we had agreed to finish up. But the hope is that we'd then we'll apply for this grant to keep them on for another year. The grants are 10% match, so I'm guessing my estimate with Aiden was that we're probably looking at needing 10 to 15,000 more to finish up the plan through next year. We've already spent $30,000, so this is significantly smaller, but it's not an unrealistic amount to think that this city plan was going to take $30,000 to $40,000 for us to complete. So they would be able to then have a lot of help to be able to finish up through the process as the public makes recommendations and makes changes. We can have them just go through and continue to make the changes on the website. So that's my recommendation. So if we want to have a motion on that, we can approve hiring, putting in a municipal planning grant application to complete the city plan. And basically that's going to mean hiring SE Group.
And you need a vote from us so that you can put that on the application. Is that why?
Yeah, I need the vote because you're going to have to sign it, Kirby, that says as planning commission chair, that's what the planning commission has agreed to do. So it's actually to kind of give you the comfort in knowing you can sign it, knowing that you've got the support of the rest of the planning commission. And then I'll need to have you stop by maybe tomorrow if you're going to be in front of City Hall, which don't let me forget, I'm in the police station right now. So not for bad reasons, for good reasons. They've moved us out of the senior center and they've moved us into the community room in the police station. So.
Okay. So at least, okay.
Yeah, I can meet you out in front as well at City Hall. If you're going to be over there, I can meet you at City Hall as well.
Well, Carlton and I were going to be there at 10. So that's where I'll be at 10 a.m.
All right. Yeah, maybe I'll meet you just out front just to get your signature.
If there's any stalkers watching the Orca feed, now they know. but it will be at the police station, so watch out. Yeah, okay, well, we have to vote first. So everyone's good with Mike, you're gonna apply for, as I understand what you said, a $30,000 grant from the state. Is that the
10,
amount?
it'll be 10 to between 10 and 15,000.
Okay, so going for 10 to 15,000 for additional funds for SE Group to do their part of the plan for us. So do we have a motion for Montpelier to apply for a municipal planning grant to pay for SE Group to help us finish the plan? Do we have that motion?
I move that we seek out additional money to finish out the plan that we've started. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, motion from Gabe. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Brian. Any discussion before we vote? Okay, those in favor of Gabe's motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So I'll see you tomorrow, Mike, and sign it. And that's a lot better than sometimes in the past we've had to scan it and stuff. And it's a kind of a pain. So that'll be nice. Okay. It is almost 7 and we've made it through our agenda and we have this giant backlog of minutes. So let's do it. Let's approve those minutes and let's have a motion to approve them all at once. But I'll give everybody.
I move that we approve all the minutes all at once. But people may need a second if they need to look at it.
Yeah, but Maria, do you need a second before a motion? Yeah. So I like the eagerness there, Gabe. But let's take like 2 or 3 minutes to review the minutes, which are in Mike's email along with the agenda attached. So I'll come back in a couple of minutes and be ready to take a motion. I was just thinking about the stalker comment thing, and when I was walking in Hubbard Park this week, I did have someone walk up to me and ask, like, "Hey, are you on Planning Commission?" So some people they know us from TV. It's true. It happens. It's not the first time it's happened either.
Look, I'm pretty used to being fluorescent, so I'm okay.
Yeah. So yeah, We're totally famous on Orca and we get recognized. They also mentioned something about finding like our planning commission work through Chat GPT, which I didn't entirely follow, but I guess it makes sense if someone puts in some queries to Chat GPT that it pulls off of Montpelier Planning Commission stuff that exists on the internet.
Yeah,
Like the minutes.
it'll scrub it.
Okay, we're all back. I moved that we accept the minutes.
Okay. Do we have a second to the motion to approve the minutes? I will list them specifically. The minutes from July 24th, September 11th, September 25th, and October 10th of 2023.
I'll second that.
We have a second for Maria. Okay. Do we have any discussion? Did anybody notice anything in the minutes to correct?
Where are they? Exactly, because I'm there. I'm looking at October 18th, October 21, October 11th, 27th, October 9th. I mean September 19th of 2023.
Do you see the attachments at the bottom of Mike's email?
I do.
So you should have to
But
click
I have
on
planning. I have planning agenda. That's what I have
Mhm.
here. And then when I go to the other, Mike, I have PC agenda. I just have planning agenda. I remember the ones that I downloaded 4. They're just not in my email. As far as I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. Keep going.
You should be able to click on them at the bottom and pull them up.
Yeah, I believe I downloaded them. Let me just look there.
But it's since you weren't present at those meetings, Carlton. It's completely like it's probably best if you just abstain from the vote anyway, because you know you weren't there to know if they're accurate or not.
And on our walk, I can't be blamed.
Yeah. Okay. So any more discussion? Anything to adjust on those? Okay. Those in favor of Gabe's motion to approve the minutes from those 4 days, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Aye.
Okay. That'll be on future minutes that Carlton abstained in that vote. But it passed 4-0-1 to approve the minutes. Okay. Does anybody have anything else before we adjourn? Get out a little bit early tonight.
I'll just make the quick note if there is anyone who's watching, because the September 11th was the public hearing. And even if people's comments aren't noted in the minutes, that I have them all recorded and we have them all in our file. So other than that, that's other than that, that's it. That's the only other thing I remembered was the fact that the whole planning department is now in the police station. So if people need to come and see us, want to chat with me, they either have to get buzzed in through dispatch or they can contact me in advance and we can meet them at the door to let them in, because the police station is a locked facility. So other than that, that's it.
Vagabonds out there, man. Jeez.
Well, welcome, Carlton. Good to have you. Look forward to getting to know you.
Great to be here. Thank you very much, you all. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. See everybody else.